Hi, I'm Tom Burgess, and thank you for listening to the Weekly Wake Up. Welcome to our weekly studio show that sets off the alarm of what's really happening in our country and what we can do about it. Now today we're going to be talking about how the government turned away help for the poor given to us by the European Union, and how the two-child policy from the Department of Work and Pension is making life even more difficult for many people. And also, is there an answer to affordable housing? Well, we think so. But we like to talk not just about the problem, but also how to fix it. So let's see who's on the panel this week. And hi, welcome back, Satya. I haven't seen you for a while. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, I've been good.
You had the family over, haven't you? You had a family invasion.
I did have a family invasion.
You don't want to tell us all about that then? You're pretty exhausted.
No, Tom, no family politics. Only politics with a capital P, please.
Okay, so we'll cut the family out. And it's good to see joining us now for a full show for the first time, our north of the border correspondent. It's Leah. How are you doing,
Hi,
Leah?
Tom. Good, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And we've got rid of the other boys, so it's just me and the girls today, because last couple of weeks it was all boys, and now
it's girl power tonight.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Well, you can do all the talking, because that's what you always do. There you go. So I don't know if anyone has seen the BBC documentary Broke.
Yes, I've seen it.
I haven't seen that one, no.
Oh, you should definitely put that on your watch list.
I know. It's I did watch it all. In fact, Hugh mentioned it, and I think it was last week, because it does remind us of how, good people are just trying to build a better life, and how we stack the odds against them.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
I think one of the key kind of takeaways for me from watching that is the struggle that people go through on 0-hour contracts and the unreliability of income and how that affects them, especially when it comes to things like trying to claim benefits when you don't have like a set amount of hours that you can kind of prove what your income is.
That's right, because actually there was that father and son, wasn't there, that were living on the beach, and they were on 0 hours, some of that, wasn't it? And then there was that young, very 17-year-old or something at McDonald's.
Yeah, like how do you plan your life and your bills when you don't know what hours you've got week to week?
That sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to watch it.
You should do, and I'd recommend it to everybody, because you just realise how tough it is, and we are stacking the odds against them. There's also a guy who'd been a freelance photographer, but now he was Uber driving to make ends meet, and he was nearly 60, but he hadn't been able to save anything. I think both of them had been freelance. Retirement was now looking at them in the face, and they had no savings, and they rented their place, and they just didn't know what they're going to do. He maybe had to keep on being part of that gig economy. So do give them that a watch on the BBC iPlayer. It's called Broke. And while I'm talking to you, just another thing, we're always looking for new people on the team. So whether you'd like to help with creating content, production or marketing, we're looking for new people on the Real Agenda team. So just let us know. The email address is on the website, info@realagenda.org. And for those who are listening to the Weekly Wake Up for the first time, each show consists of 2 to 4 panelists. Well, I suppose there's 3 of us, so that's good. And each one chooses a topic to discuss related to a recent event or media story connected to the fundamental issues of inequality, poverty, social and economic justice. And because that's the Real Agenda. And we discuss this with a view about what can be done to resolve these issues and what we the people can do about it. So the first topic today comes from Satya. So tell us the topic you want to talk about today, Satya.
Yeah, I want to talk about this shocking story, actually, where the peers in the House of Lords have criticised the Home Office for not spending £3.5 million. That's £3.5 million, which was given to us by the FEAD, and that's the Fund for European Aid to the most deprived. Now, this fund is specifically designed to help and support member countries who have the most deprived people. And obviously, we got this funding, 3.5 million. And initially, the government were going to use this money to support UK's breakfast clubs around the country. But it never happened. And partly the government is saying, that didn't happen because the criteria for spending the money is so tight. But Lord Jay, who is the chair of the EU Home Affairs Committee, has completely dismissed that and said, actually, we've had this money for 6 years now and nothing has been spent. And in fact, £580,000 have already been taken back by the European Union because we have failed to spend it. And what he's saying is that other countries, member states who have got this money have all spent their money. So it's ridiculous that in the UK we have not been able to spend this money.
That is really shocking.
It's shocking because we have people who could really do, what could we do with 3.5 million?
Yeah.
And it's just been sitting there while people are suffering.
Why is it not being used?
It seems to me that it's complete neglect. It's neglect of the poor. They've not found the time, the energy, or the inclination to be creative or to be imaginative in terms of how they could help the most deprived people in this country.
And that seems to go right through a few things that the government are doing at the moment. I mean, we've seen that in recent weeks where it just staggers me that it's not top of the agenda in terms of solving poverty. It just seems to be like
Sometimes I get cynical about, what people say, the government is made up of Oxbridge set. But actually, when things like this happen, it just strikes me that if the government is made up of people who have never actually been poor, have never experienced what it's like to be poor, how can they ever have the imagination to really help the people who most need it? Any government, it has to be there to help and support the most vulnerable in our society. And it just isn't happening.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you made in terms of they don't understand, so they don't have the creativity to meet this criteria that the European Union have asked for. How can every other country have met that criteria, but we still haven't?
It's staggering. To me, it's very, very...
So it's symptomatic of really what's going on and the fact that these things are not a priority. And talking about what's the answer to this, well, just get on with, and if we're given the money, then it should go to people that need it and put to a good cause.
And if anybody from the government is listening, I say give it to us, to the real agenda. We will show them how to spend this money.
I think we've got several ideas on that front, and I'm sure a lot of other people have. So I think that's...
And it's only now that they've been pushed to kind of think about this, because actually in another few months, another £500,000 has already been wasted. Another £600,000 will be taken away if we still don't spend it. So now the idea is that they will spend it on helping young refugees and tackling modern slavery. Now those issues have been around for many, many years.
These aren't new problems.
Certainly since the money's been there.
So are they going to spend it?
That's what they're saying. Okay. They want to spend it on now.
Have they said what exactly they will do around that?
No, again, it's just very woolly, very woolly. It will be interesting to see if that money does get spent or whether it's just wasted.
Okay, well, moving on. Leah, what topic do you want to raise?
The Department for Work and Pensions, WMP, recently released some statistics around... DWT, what did I call it?
It doesn't matter. No, I don't know.
The Department for Work and Pensions, I think that would DWP.
Do, yeah. Sorry.
Thanks. Excuse me, I'm representing the north of the country. This is how we sound.
Good.
So I love that accent. I think it's great.
Thank you, Satya. So they recently released some statistics around the two-child benefit cap. So this is the policy that former Chancellor George Osborne brought in around April 2017. And it basically meant that if you had more than 2 children after the 6th of April 2017, you would not get any benefits for those children. So your 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever, the government will no longer support you in benefits. And the reason being that they implemented this, and here's I'm quoting from what they said at the time, is to aim to ensure fairness between claimants of benefits and those that solely support themselves through work. I feel even the way that they've described this policy when they were implementing at the time in 2017, it makes already by saying fairness that the people on benefits are, being unfair, like they're claiming benefits unfairly when you compare it to people at work, which I think is already quite negative narrative around the policy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the statistics that were released said, so this was all around a fair society and to encourage people back in to go to work instead of claim benefits. But the statistics that actually came out of this report said that of those affected by this policy, 59% of households already had one adult in work. So basically the whole aim of this policy was to encourage people into work, but actually of 59%, they are already working. So what is this policy brought in? What is the benefit of this?
So in a way, it sounds to me like it's actually hurting the most vulnerable people.
Yeah.
Because if you've got one member of the family in work on low benefits, and actually then you might have 3 or 4 children, actually you're going to be even worse off than other people. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And there was another shocking outcome as well with this report. So if you have more than 2 children, you can be exempt if the third child is conceived through a multiple birth. So if you had twins or triplets, but also if the child was conceived out of rape. So they also released statistics for how many women have had to not necessarily prove, but speak to the department to discuss how that they were actually raped. So they're still entitled to this benefit, which for someone that's already gone through such a traumatic event to then have to talk about it, to claim to get benefits, I think is just disgusting for them to have to go through that.
Yeah, I think that's awful. That's absolutely
So this is
awful.
another example of the policy having more or less the opposite effect of what it was intended to do.
And if
And it's
anything,
not saving any money because it's causing more problems.
yeah. And if anything, the child tax credits is for the child. So you're really you're punishing the child. Although the government have said at the time this is to encourage people back into work, you're not punishing that parent. You're punishing the child that's then going to be brought up in a household that doesn't have enough income to put food on the tables to pay the rent.
But, it seems to me, call me a cynic again, but it seems to me...
I'm not going to call you a cynic again because we did that a couple of weeks ago.
I know, but it kind of just very clear to me that actually these kinds of policies were done on the back of really negative views about people who were on benefits.
Yeah.
And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when we talked about, Benefit Street, where there was a view around our country that, all those people on benefits were the scourge of Britain and they were the worst people on the earth. And, people were talking about single parent mums who were only having children because they could go out and get a flat for free and get to the top of the, all of these kinds of things. And was it a policy designed to stop people having more than 2 children?
Effectively, yes, I would say so.
So it was one of those terrible policies, like, is it the Chinese who have a one child
rule?
And this is a kind of backhanded way of making that happen.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, when I was reading the report and media stories that came around it, one thing that also kind of struck me is by them implementing this, they've really taken away people on lower income the choice for how they want to raise their family. It's not an option for people on lower income to have one adult as a stay-at-home parent now. You have to work. If you're on a lower income or a 0-hour contract, you no longer have that option for how you want to build your family. Not only do you not have the option you could say you don't have the option to choose how many kids you have because then you're going to lose benefits, you're going to struggle. But then you don't have the option to choose if you want to stay at home or if you want to go to work because you just don't have enough income.
I mean, all of this is crazy.
It's the treadmill, isn't it? You both got to go to work and then you're both under a lot of pressure. Or if it's a 2-parent family, and it's even worse, obviously, if it's a single-parent family, if you haven't got the support because the children suffer from not having that parental guidance as much as they like.
I mean, there's so much research that says that children grow up happier, healthier, much more well-rounded, well-educated if at least one parent, spends the first 5 years with them. So, yes, women want the option to be able to work or to stay at home. I think as a society, we should enable, it doesn't matter which parent, it could be the father or the mother, to be able to stay at home and look after their children if they choose to do so.
Yeah.
At the moment, we're going completely the opposite way. But also the added thing is we're not providing adequate child benefit to enable those parents to do that and ensure that the children are taken care of properly.
Talking about child care or child benefit?
Well, no, childcare. If both parents have to go out to work to be able to put food on the table and they're spending so much money on childcare, it's not helping anybody, let alone us as a society and as a country for our future.
Yeah.
What's the answer here then in terms of what do we do about this policy that we...
For me, they should scrap it.
Yeah, I think that's the only answer here.
That's our answer to anybody who's listening. Scrap this policy because it's not working.
There doesn't seem to be any clear benefits coming from this, clearly from looking at the statistics. So why are they doing this? So I think with a new prime minister, it's definitely something that they should be relooking at why they implemented it in the first place and what benefit is bringing to society.
This is the thing that, compassion in politics is one of the criteria that they have put forward, is to say that any policy that comes out must look after the most vulnerable or must not hurt the most vulnerable in our society. And this policy clearly is.
So it's not compassionate.
It's not compassionate at all.
That's
no
right.
compassion.
Yeah. Compassion in Politics, that's an organisation campaigning for compassion in politics, and you can find them online. You just search Compassion in Politics. And then, Satya, you wanted to sort of an extension of this. You had a few other comments.
Very topical. I mean, we're in the middle of the school holidays at the moment. There's a lot of talk in the papers, lots of articles around hunger during the school holidays. Again, going on from what Leah's been saying about her story, is that actually there are many children who go hungry. I mean, school holidays are meant to be fun. They're meant to be, good for families. They're meant to be a time where families can spend some time together, enjoy each other, and for the children to actually grow, have a different kind of education, to be able to maybe go to museums, maybe have interesting holidays in different countries, to grow their cultural capital, so that actually we have a more rounded, well-educated children for our future. That is not happening. In fact, particularly those families who are on low income and on benefits spend their whole time worrying about how they're going to feed their children. And what's happening is schools and charities are getting involved, and they're actually providing school meals and activities for children, and it shouldn't be so.
I know, it just goes round in circles because of the incomes are so low. And I'm just reminded of that, came up recently on the news about a certain politician by the name of Rees-Mogg, who was talking about food banks and how he thought it was really quite uplifting that we were providing food banks, and how compassionate, showed how compassionate our society was.
That's what they take away from people going to food banks. That is uplifting.
Yeah.
That's
He actually said this, and this brings it home to you that people like him are missing the whole point. Why have we got people in this situation? Because the minimum wage is too low, because the benefits are not good enough, housing is too expensive, and a series of other things, and a lot of them are proactive austerity policies. And you get a politician who lives a comfortable existence and also wears top hats, apparently. I don't think is the latest fashion. And so I'm not questioning him as a person. It just shows you how out of touch. So they think that it's nice that people are providing food banks and helping people in other ways. But yes, we've caused this problem.
It makes me wonder whether he's ever been to a food bank. It makes me wonder whether he's spoken to people who go to food banks. In this article, it says 50,000 young people will go hungry in these school holidays. People are ashamed of having to go to food banks. People actually, there were stories of people where they want to go around the back door because they don't want to be seen to be going into food banks. Should people in our country be so ashamed but have to do something like this because they just don't have enough money to feed themselves and their families?
Yeah. It is proactive austerity policies, which we've just made life so difficult for people. And in terms of answers, it's quite clear. We've just got to stop doing it and take a more positive approach. And the school holiday things is very sad.
Well, the fact that the start of this conversation, we talked around this fund that is unspent, and now we're talking around kids going hungry at school holidays. Like, there seems to be a clear solution there that the government seemed to have missed.
Yeah, 6 years. That money's been sitting there, not spent. 6 years.
And moving on now, we've discussed some interesting topics today, and I think the summation of how we fix this is stop doing what you're doing.
Do something different.
And you get at the root causes of the problem rather than trying to paper over the cracks and then cause problems even worse. And that was also brought home to me because I actually caught a part of the Radio 4 programme, Any Questions, over the weekend. And there was a question about how we can have a more affordable housing. And they had the housing minister on there. Clearly didn't have a very much idea. It was like, well, we want to build more houses, or we want to sort out rent control. And there was also a girl on there who was the assistant comment editor at the Telegraph, and previously been the editorial manager at the Institute of Economic Affairs, which is usually considered to be sort of more of a right-wing think tank. Anyway, her answer was, she thought it was quite simple. We build more houses, the price will go down. And
if it was simple as that.
Well, the answer to this, as I think we've discussed before, and there was a recent report which was edited by George Monbiot, and it's about the land. And the fact is, the cost of a house, 70% of it cost is land. So if you take out the cost of the land, we're going to reduce the cost of houses significantly. And how do you do that? Well, you get the local authority to buy land or use the public land to build houses on, and that land belongs to the community. Now, you had a thing in Scotland, Leah, you said
yes,
similar.
in our community in North Scotland, the land is managed by a committee of farmers. And then if someone local wants to build a house or buy the land to use it for their own business, then it's offered at a discounted rate, say if a business out with the community would want to purchase it.
This was land that was owned by the aristocracy?
Yes, basically, the lords and ladies that owned Scotland, yeah.
So they've now pass
it back to the community, to go back to the community again.
Well, because when you think about it, the actual, what does it matter about the actual land? It's actually your property. So if you didn't own the land, but you owned your property, you can still put an extension on it or drill holes in the wall if you want to, and you wouldn't get such a big return over the years on the property. But that's not the point. The point is housing people, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And if the land is cheaper, also those that can't get to buy one, the rents are cheaper.
So would the land that is owned by the local authority then, would people buy the land to build their own homes, or would the local authority build the homes, and would it become social housing? How does it work?
Well, it could do either way. This is a bit like community land trusts, where they buy the land and then they develop it, but it's owned by the community. Community could own the land. People could build houses on it, but the land, and then you lease. There's a lease on the land, so the people who built the house are not paying for the land. It's still owned by somebody else, but they've got a right to use it. So therefore, you cut out all this speculation. Mm-hmm. Now that could be social housing as well. So this is affordable rents, but the rents would be a lot more affordable anyway, because the properties wouldn't be so expensive.
Yeah.
But because we have this sort of Thatcherite thing that we've all got to aspire to owning property, and the value goes up.
Yes.
By a lot, we have a problem. Anything else to add?
No.
Wait,
we've got to solve this. I think the housing issue is something that really is a huge problem in this country.
Absolutely is.
And it just looks like when you look at this, what this new Prime Minister is saying, it's all about, helping the rich. And it continues, and I'm just worried of what's going to happen. Come
the revolution then, eh? We've got to take to the streets. Well, I mean, and that's not such a daft idea, really, but I think, some people have started to do that, but we've got to get whole change. That's about it for this week. And we hope that we've woken you up and that we've helped inform and maybe involve you and inspired you to take a bit of action. What do you think?
Well, I hope so. I hope people will get involved and take action, because the thing you said about maybe it is a revolution in that sense. But I think the more people who say actually enough is enough, we do want compassion in our politics, because actually after the World War II, there was compassion in our politics. The country was rebuilt on compassion. And because people pulled together, and who knows? We don't know what's going to happen about Brexit, but maybe because of this awful thing that's happening to our country, I have real hope and faith in the British people that we will pull together and we'll make something good of this.
I hope so too, and keep the nation together. We don't want the Scots
people running together.
We don't want the Scots people running off and doing their own thing. But we can learn a lot, because actually in Scotland there's so many sort of progressive policies that actually could be adopted.
There really is. Yeah, it's very true.
So we need to look to
free university for all, I say.
Oh, that's right. You want another degree, do you? We've got a few good things coming up on the Real Agenda. Doing a series about what we're going to call profit for purpose, and we'll be talking to business leaders who put purpose above profit. And I think we'll be learning a lot more about that in the future because it helps to build a more sustainable and inclusive economy. So that will be coming up soon on the Real Agenda. Special thanks to our sponsors, Reverse Media Group, one of the fastest growing search and media companies. Find out why at reversemediagroup.com. One thing is certain, people want to see change to a more compassionate and just society, as well as more courageous politicians prepared to do the right thing for the people over party. It's urgent, and it's up to us to make it happen. So it's goodbye from our team.
Goodbye from Leah.
And from...
Goodbye from Satya.
Oh, it's cake time now. You bought some little buns for us.
Gluten-free cakes for all.
And calorie-free, obviously.
No calories at all, Leah.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed for listening. And my name's Tom Burgess, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.